Hi, my name's Isabella and I'm one of the peer academic writing mentors here at the university. Today, this session is going to cover reflective writing. Today, I will cover what reflection is and why we should do it, how reflective writing is dissimilar to other types of core academic writing that you undertake during university, the different forms of writing reflectively, how to write in the first person, and the language to use when writing reflectively. So, what actually is reflection? Reflection is a form of personal response to experiences, situations, events, or new information. And it is a processing phase where thinking and learning takes place. So before you can begin to assess the words and ideas of others, you need to pause and identify and examine your own thoughts. Doing this may involve revisiting your prior experience and knowledge of the topic you are exploring. It also involves considering how and why you think the way you do. So the examination of your beliefs, values, attitudes and assumptions form the foundation of your understanding. Reflective writing is different to other types of academic writing that you're required to do in your university studies, as it is used to illustrate your personal growth and development in your field of study by showing how you have linked your new experiences and learning to existing knowledge that you may have. Reflective writing may also focus on the strategies you have used to deal with issues in your learning. And also remember that you may be expected to write in a reflective manner, especially near the end of your course in a dissertation, or it may be a specific essay question. So anytime you're required to write a reflective essay, it will be good practice. Why should you reflect? There are various reasons why you should reflect on different experiences that you have had. Some of these include to learn from your experiences through reflection, to explore situations from different perspectives, to develop further self-awareness, to consider and explore feelings, reactions and responses in more depth, to look at how we can adapt to situations, and to gain skills to move forward and make progress both personally and professionally. Gibbs's reflective model is something that we will come to later in the presentation, as this is massively useful in writing reflective essays. So what Gibbs has said about why you should reflect is, it is not sufficient simply to have an experience in order to learn. Without reflecting upon this experience, it may be quickly forgotten or its learning potential lost. It is from the feelings and thoughts emerging from this reflection that generalizations or concepts can be generated. And it is generalizations that allow new situations to be tackled effectively. You may be asking yourself, how is reflective writing dissimilar to core academic writing that you have already undertaken in your undergraduate degree? Reflective writing is usually used in specific genres, such as critical incidents or journals, and crucially, it connects personal feelings and behaviour. It includes observation and evaluation. It may be quite descriptive and informal, depending on what you're being asked to do. And the use of the first person is appropriate. It also tends to link theory to practice. As mentioned earlier, Gibbs' reflection cycle is a really useful tool to think about when you're writing reflectively. So Gibbs asks, give a description of events. Tell your reader exactly what happened and what you're going to be talking about. Now, one thing you can reflect on, which is often neglected, is your own feelings about the situation. What were you thinking and feeling at the time, or before, during and after the event? Then you can move on to evaluation, considering what was good and what was bad about the experience. Again, what were the positives and negatives? Then you can move on to your critical analysis. What sense can you make of the situation and why was it important? Finally, you can move on to your conclusion and an action plan for the future. What else could you have done differently, Or what would you do differently if the situation were to arise again? If you were going to do things the same way, why did you think that worked really well the first time? This example here shows a piece of reflective writing where Gibbs cycle has been used. So, if you would like to look at this in more detail, please pause the video here. When writing reflectively, it is important to reflect before, during, and after an experience. So, before the experience, you might want to jot down some things, such as what do you think might happen, do you think any challenges will arise, and what do you think you need to know in order to be the most prepared. During the experience, make a mental note of what is happening right now, and is it working out as you expected? If the challenges that you thought would arise have arisen, are you dealing with those well? Is there anything else that you think you should do, say, or think to make the experience really successful? And most crucially, what are you learning from this in the moment? After the experience, again, it would be useful to jot these down while they're fresh in your mind. So what are your insights after or later when you've had more emotional distance from the event? In retrospect, how did it go in general? What was particularly valuable about the experience? And why was it valuable? Is there anything you would do differently before or during a similar event? And again, what have you learned? There are many different forms of writing reflectively that you may be required to do during your time at university. These may include writing a journal, which would require you to write weekly entries throughout a semester maybe, or may require you to base your reflection on course content. They may also include a logbook, which is often used in those disciplines which are based on experimental work, such as the sciences. And in a logbook, you would note down or log exactly what you have done. And the log gives you an accurate record of a process and helps you reflect on past actions and make better decisions for future actions. Other forms of writing reflectively may include a reflective note, which is often used in law, and a reflective note encourages you to think about your personal reaction to a legal issue that is raised in a course. It may be you're required to undertake an essay diary, which can take the form of an annotated bibliography, where you examine sources of evidence that you might include in your essay and provide a critique, where you reflect on your own writing and research processes. You may also be asked to do self-assessment, which would require you to comment on your own work. Moving on to writing in the first person. In university, many of the assignments that you'll be required to do, you will be told to write in the third person. So using phrases such as this essay will explore or the author will identify. However, in reflective writing, you will be required to use the first person as you are reflecting about your own experiences. And first person writing is all about yourself. Even though you'll be writing in the first person in the reflective piece of writing, it is still really important to remember to avoid being subjective. Academic writing requires students to support the claims that they make by providing solid arguments, references, or evidence. So even when the first person is used in academic writing, it can and usually should still sound objective. That means making it clear that you are not just expressing an unsupported personal view, and that you are concerned about facts and/or reasons, rather than being influenced by your own personal feelings or biases. As many students can find writing reflectively quite difficult as they are not used to it, we have provided here some sentence starters to get you going when writing reflectively. So if you were discussing the benefits of reflection, you could start the sentence by saying, reflection has provided me with the opportunity to. If you were talking about your knowledge and skills, you could say, this equipped me with a new way of approaching, or I have begun to build upon my knowledge by, or I now more feel confident about articulating my feelings. All these sentence starters can be found on the Manchester Phrase Bank, and the link is at the bottom of the page there. When you are writing reflectively in an essay, you need to think about the analysis that you can provide. So, not just describing something that has happened, but using evidence and examples to illustrate your reflections. And there needs to be a balance between your personal experience and academic practice. And this means developing a perspective or line of reasoning and demonstrating that you are well informed and have read the relevant literature and reflected on its relevance. Crucially, you are aiming to draw out the links between theory and practice, so you will need to keep comparing the two and exploring the relationship between them. Analyse the event and think about it with reference to a particular theory or academic evidence. Then ask yourself, are your observations consistent with the theory, models, or published academic evidence? How can the theories help you to interpret your experience? And you should also consider how your experience in practice helps you to understand these theories. Two key things to keep in mind are to be selective. So identify challenging or successful parts of the experience and then reflect deeply on a few significant aspects and learning points that you can think of. Then I would suggest discussing your reflections with others. This will help you deepen your insight, improve your ability to express your ideas, and to help you explore a range of perspectives that you may not have thought about previously. In most of the core academic writing that you undertake at university, the evidence that you provide is academic evidence from published case studies and theories that show how your ideas and practices have developed in the context of the relevant academic literature. However, in reflective writing, there is two types of evidence you can use. The academic evidence, as previously mentioned, but also your reflections, as your reflections form essential evidence of your experiences. So I would suggest keeping notes on your reflections and the developments that have occurred during the process. For some students, such as PGCE students or BA-QTS students, you will be required to reflect on your work placement. So a reflection based on a work placement needs to focus on the outcomes for you personally, culturally, and possibly for others. For example, students in a classroom or clients in a business setting. You'll probably reflect on successes and problems, and therefore what you learn from the experiences and what effects that learning will have on you and your interactions in various situations in the future. Your reflections will also have links to your course concepts, as you will be evaluating your experiences through the theoretical constructs that are relevant. You will also use relevant theories and concepts when you explore other possibilities and solutions. Things that you can consider when reflecting on a work placement include theory versus practice, the external environmental factors that are at play, the internal or personal factors that you control during the experience, if there are any short-term and/or long-term consequences. You should also take into consideration the roles and positions of others and any power differences that might be at play, what the processes were versus what the outcomes were and were they predicted or perhaps unexpected, and also if there are any social and cultural differences. The final piece of reflective writing that you may be required to do is reflecting on a piece of literature. A reflection based on a reading consists of your analysis of your reactions to the reading. So that means what it made you think about, whether it helps you understand or be able to explain some aspect of your own life or the life of someone whom you know well. Does it relate to an event that has been in the media recently? Or did it make you research further because it was new or interesting or complex? You may also discover that you find yourself writing on how a particular reading opens up your thinking about writings on the same topic by other authors. As mentioned throughout this presentation, Gibbs' model of reflection is really useful when thinking about writing reflectively. So for a quick activity now, choose an incident or event that you've experienced at university, at work, or during a placement setting, and then use Gibbs' model to reflect on those events, making notes for each stage. So how did you feel? What evaluation can you provide? Can you provide some analysis? Then conclude and think about an action plan for the future. If you would like to do this activity, please pause the video here for 5 minutes. This brings us to the end of the presentation. If you have any questions or would like to book a one-to-one appointment with the academic writing mentors at the university, please email peeracademicwritingmentor@hope.ac.uk. Thank you for listening.